experiments. Hi everyone, my name is Julia. Welcome back to my channel. Do you like challenges? Well, I do. However, in this video, I'm going to talk about how you should ditch challenges and do experiments instead. I'll show you how I set up experiments to introduce change into my life and figure out what works for me. If you would like to benefit from experiments as well, please keep on watching. First of all, let's talk definitions. What is an experiment and how is it different from a challenge? Let's start with challenge. The essence of a challenge is a competition, a dare. The answer to the question, can I handle it? Challenges often happen for fun, as a dare, or a way to prove to yourself or to other people that you can actually do something. It's important to mention that I am not talking about actual challenges in life, for instance, like financial struggles, or some challenges as cool new projects that you think are a little bit outside of your comfort zone that you can take at work. I'm talking about things that you want to try for the sake of trying. I mean challenges as a dare. For instance, can I take cold showers for 30 days? Or can I wake up at 5 a.m. for the whole summer? Or can I live this minimalist lifestyle owning only 50 things? My problem with challenges is that they often don't have any goal behind it. They're quite hard to sustain. Well, they're challenges after all, right? You're not supposed to sustain them for a long time. And that they don't really answer the question, why should I have this or do this in my life in the first place? That's why I propose to turn challenges into experiments. It means you can keep the fun of the challenge and turning them into something more meaningful, something that you can actually benefit from and improve your life with. According to Cambridge Dictionary, an experiment is a test done to learn something or discover if something works or is true. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to test something in order to learn if that works for us. Originally, I wanted to make it more scientific, to actually use scientific method to introduce experiments. One of the key things of the scientific method is that whatever you do has to be replicable by you or other people if the experiment is going to be repeated. However, I think, say, if you want to try out some minimalist lifestyle and own just 50 items, your results could be very different from some other people's results. And there would be a number of factors based on your personality and lifestyle that would determine the outcome. So it cannot be purely scientific. However, I would like to introduce certain structure to experiments so you can use it as a framework that you may or may not want to adjust to your own needs in your own lifestyle. So here's the structure of the experiment. I treat experiment as a procedure that has a predefined goal, a setup, and some conditions. First of all, goal. You need to figure out why you're doing it. What is the purpose? What is it that you want to achieve with this experiment? And the important thing here, how do you know that your goal is achieved? Of course, it's better to make both goal and success criteria as specific as possible, but it's up to you to decide how strict you want to be with that. It's Saturday. People are also working in their gardens. By the way, just stating, I wonder if I can handle it is a perfectly fine goal. No judgment. It's not really necessary for the goal to be overcoming something or proving something to yourself. And I really get disturbed by that phrase, like, what kind of people are living in my head that I need to prove something to them? So the goal indeed could be just figuring out if something works for you. For instance, several months ago, I wanted to figure out if taking digital notes on my iPad using an Apple Pencil would work for me in a way that it would replace the paper notebooks, well, and pencils and pens. I did this experiment for 3 weeks to figure out if I could stick to that, if it actually works, if writing is a nice experience because, well, I write on a piece of glass, so it's a little bit strange. Well, as a result, it worked perfectly fine for me. I had to buy a foil that imitates the paper feeling, and that makes it even more pleasant. So now I'm getting rid of all my paper notebooks, so ping me if you need one. All right, so the next one is setup. Setup is everything that you do during your experiment. Here you can define everything that you need to do, how you do it, what you do, what are the time frame, For instance, if you need to involve other people in there, you can write it down for yourself, but often this is not necessary. You just set it up in your head, so to say. The setup of your experiment largely depends on the nature of it. You can also think about time and location for your experiment. For instance, if you want to do some sporting activities, you can decide whether you want to do it in the gym, at home, or in the park, or somewhere else outside. It can also be a constraint for your experiment. For instance, you can say that I want to run in the park every day before breakfast for 30 days to decide if that improves my mood. And the last part, but not the least important, is conditions. I find two types of conditions most important: the time constraints and the exit condition. Time constraints are pretty straightforward. You decide for how long are you doing something, or the minimum time you're doing something to decide whether you want to quit. So that actually is a part of your exit condition. Exit conditions are the things that should happen or should not happen for you to decide that you don't want to do this anymore. I think this is one of the main differences from challenges, where you just have to do something no matter what. This condition is a permission for you to stop you give yourself before you begin. No guilt, no strings attached, no feeling that you have failed. No, that was a part of your setup. Things didn't work. You can actually very freely move on to the next thing. So after you have set up your experiment, conducted it, got some results, you analyze the results and you see whether that works for you or not. Maybe you need to make certain modifications to move on. You might be willing to run another experiment with some altered conditions, for instance. Or you can also give yourself a break. Always a good idea. There is one important disclaimer. Even though I think it goes without saying, still important to mention. All experiments have to be ethical. Whatever you do to yourself or to other people has to be no harm for the well-being of the person. Please keep that in mind. Let's look at an example. Say you would like to become a part of the 5 a.m. club, which means you have to wake up at 5 a.m. for 66 days. And as the challenge is pretty clear, you get yourself out of bed for 66 days at 5 a.m. for whatever. Well, if that's a challenge, it's pretty clear. You should figure out whether you can handle it. If you don't have a pure goal, the challenge becomes even more challenging because you don't know how that can benefit you. But even if there is a goal, for instance, you want to become a morning person, there is still a number of things you can question. For instance, why do you want to be a morning person? What do you need mornings for? How does being a morning person fit into your lifestyle? Why are you doing this? Is it because you have seen some successful people doing that and you want to become one of them? Then maybe you should think about what success means to you instead, and not torture yourself in the mornings. That being said, you can still live it as a fun challenge and figure out if you can wake up at some ungodly hour for 66 days. That's also okay. So, pretty clear how waking up at 5 a.m. is a challenge, but let's make it an experiment. We need the goal, the setup, and the conditions. Let's say your goal is become a morning person in order to use your mornings to do some online courses and some personal projects that you don't have time during the day. Let's say the criteria of success would be X amount of projects and courses are done within a set time period. So let's see how our setup could look like. You have a time frame, this is 66 days. You have to wake up at 5, which means that you have to go to bed around 9. You set your alarm at 4:50 so that maybe you can snooze once before you get out of bed. You probably should get your coffee ready in the evening. You have a list of the projects or things that you need to do in the morning so you don't waste your time, because otherwise you can just sleep. And you also have a system in place to track your progress. And the last part, exit conditions and time. So time is pretty clear, it's the part of the challenge, so it's 66 days. Exit condition could be something like, after 14 days, I evaluate the results of the experiment, and if I see that that hinders my well-being or the well-being of my family, or the progress of my projects and courses is not the way I want it to be, then I stop the experiment. To be honest, I've done this challenge last year myself. I wanted to wake up at 5 a.m. for 66 days to do some online courses, read some books, do some projects of mine, sometimes do some exercises in the morning. And I quit after a month because it wasn't really working for me. I was constantly sleep deprived. My social life was suffering because sometimes I had calls in the evening and I couldn't really have any of them past 8 p.m. I think this experiment could have worked if my friends and all my environment was also some kind of early birds, if there were shops open that early or gyms or whatever. But unfortunately, it wasn't the case. Had I made it into experiment, maybe I would not have a feeling of the failed challenge that I had. There is one thing that I learned. I do like mornings. And I think that waking up at 6 or 6:30 would do just fine. It's still pretty early, but that will give me enough time to do my own projects, perhaps my morning exercise, or even some extra work before I have to start working. Let's sum everything up. Challenge is usually a test to figure out whether you can do this. It most often doesn't have a clear goal, or you don't know what kind of benefit it can bring you. Experiment, on the other hand, is much softer way to find out, to test if something works for you and how that works for you. It has a clear goal, a setup, and the conditions. You clearly know why you're doing this, what is the outcome you expect, what is your criteria of success, the setup itself, so how you do it, when, what, with whom. You have some time constraints, and you have the exit condition. What needs to happen for you to stop the experiment altogether? Actually, you don't really have to follow this very elaborate setup that I just described. The main thing here is to have a goal. You have to know your why. Why are you doing this? How you can benefit from that? How you can introduce this change into your life? Additionally, you can turn any challenge into experiment by defining a goal. Why am I doing this? The setup. I have to do A, B, and C. And conditions. If so and so happens, I finish the experiment. So this is it. This was my approach to experiments and how I use them to introduce certain changes into my life and to figure out what works for me. What do you think about this approach? Please leave some comments below. And as always, thank you for watching. And if you like this video, please hit like and subscribe button and come back for more useful videos. I wish you the very best day. Bye bye.